Welcome back to another edition of the Knight Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie O'Leary, and Rutgers beat writer, Alec Krauthamel. We are going to go over the Nebraska game after doing another rewatch, marinating on our thoughts for 48 hours, give you a recap of what we thought. We're going to go over Schiano's presser today for the Wisconsin game, and we're going to go over how some of Rutgers' future opponents did this past weekend. Before we start all that, this podcast is presented to you by Knight and Day Apparel. Get ready for football and tailgating season with Knight and Day Apparel. Our apparel is designed to keep you comfortable and stylish from the pregame excitement to the final whistle. Whether you're grilling in the parking lot or cheering from the stands, our high-quality gear has you covered with unbeatable comfort and team spirit. Use our promo code RutgersRivals to get 10% off your purchase. Score big this season and keep shopping with Knight and Day Apparel.
Nothing new at the moment, but you can get this laser cut spatula for your grilling in the parking lot for $2 or save $18 on it. Damn, that's a $40 spatula originally.
Wow,
that's crazy. You could also get another 10% off that. With our promo code.
There you go. Cool stuff.
This podcast is also brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline is every stat, matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread each week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on some blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our 150 slot games. Head to the website today and get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, so first off, I love that BTN Plus has the football games cut down into 60-minute, most actually even shorter. It's called Big Ten in 60, but it normally takes about like 45 minutes to get through a game. So rewatching games is made so much easier using that. The last few weeks, we've gotten some flack from certain sub-segments of the fan base, just complaining that why we're being hard on the team. We won. So what if they had missed opportunities? You want to enjoy it, blah, blah, blah. And now those same people are the ones who are bringing out the pitchforks, dooming and glooming about the coaching staff, about the players. And it's like, well, that's why you talk about things you see good and bad in both wins and losses, because nothing is ever as good as the win would indicate. Nothing's ever as bad as the loss would indicate. So I just kind of want a table set there. I also want to put out the fully fleshed thought exercise that I kind of toyed with on the live show. And I just kind of want to talk about some of the good stats that you would think, oh, if all these things happen, then Rutgers probably won going away. Mm-hmm. What if I told you all these things happened in a Rutgers game? Rutgers blocked not 1, but 2 punts. Rutgers held Nebraska to only 14 points, which was the lowest output of the year and almost 20 points below their season average. What if I told you that Rutgers held the Nebraska rushing game to 3.4 yards per carry when you take out the sack yardage? Oh, and did I say sack yardage? Because Rutgers sacked Dylan Raiola 4 times, the most of any game in the season. What if I also told you that they held Dylan Raiola to his worst game passing of his career in terms of yardage and in terms of accuracy? By far, we held him to 48% accuracy. His next worst game was 63%. Continuing with that, what if I told you Nebraska was held scoreless in the second half? Nebraska was held to only 15 yards passing from their quarterback. That Nebraska was held to 1.9 yards per play in the second half. What if I also told you that Rutgers only committed 4 penalties, Nebraska committed 7? What if I also told you that Kyle Monungai rushed for 64 yards in a quarter? Oh yeah, the first quarter. And what if I told you that Rutgers got 9 possessions into Nebraska territory? Knowing all that, what would you have said Rutgers' win margin was by? Not if Rutgers won, but how much they had won by.
Them double digits.
Yeah, pretty much double digits.
Easily.
Insane.
But things happened in this game that did not allow us to win at all, that we will get into. And I'm sure you all are well aware of that. But I just felt that I just wanted to talk about the good things that happened in a loss, because we're often told that we don't talk enough about good things that happen in wins even. The defense, I want to just give them flowers because I got a lot more numbers to talk about with the defense. Nebraska was held to either a 4th down or a turnover on all but one of their 12 drives in the game. Now you say, but they scored 2 touchdowns. Yeah, they converted on fourth down. But to do that is just a huge indictment on how good the defense played. The defense also committed 0 penalties on the day. In the run game, they had 7 tackles for loss, which is a high on the season. They held Nebraska to 3.4 yards per carry. They missed 3 tackles in the entire game. They had 15 missed tackles last week. Pass defense, 13 pressures, 8 hurries, 4 sacks, 5 pass breakups, 1 interception. Already talked about the 48% completion percentage. Dylan Raiola was only held to 134 yards on the day. Flip Dixon, Jaquan Loyal, Bo Mascow all made huge open field tackle plays. Robert Longerbeam only played 3 snaps in this one. And the only blemish I could say on the defense, and this isn't like targeting one guy, but Shorty got beat a couple times deep, and it was just poor positioning, but he's a guy who's barely played this year. What other kind of superlatives do you guys have from the game? Because I've kind of monologued long enough here. After kind of ruminating on things, what were your guys' thoughts? Rich, you could start.
There's just like little things that they could have done better that could have won in the game. Obviously, offensive line play was an issue. And I know everyone wants to blame the left guard spot because Felter was out, but it was also right tackle. Tyler Needham was a turnstile as well. Just giving up. You can't blame Ethan. You can blame Ethan a little bit. Don't get me wrong. He did make some erratic throws, throwing across the chest while on the run. Like, there's questionable decisions. The 1 4th down call, it was 4th and goal from like the half-yard line. He threw behind, who was it, Dimir or was it Chris Long? One of them set the pick while the other one was trying to get the ball, but he threw behind him, so it wasn't even catchable if he wanted it to. So there was some fault of Ethan's, but he was getting pressured so much and so often that it was hard for him to even get into any type of groove. I just think offensive line play needs to be better. And now that one of your best guys and your top 3 linemen, I would say, easily, maybe top 2 in Brian Felter's out for the year, you got to figure out that left guard spot. Is Taj White the answer? Is Dante Chin the answer? Do you go back to the drawing board completely and just open it up for competition? I know Greg said in his presser that he actually thought Taj White had a good game. I can't agree with that one. You can't show me the film and say he had a good game. Did he kind of bounce back at times after giving up those pressures and sacks? Yeah, but he still gave up a bunch more during the game. Like, he was at fault for the majority of those pass rushes. You can argue Needham was right there as well, but they have to figure it out. We've said time and time again over the past couple of weeks, and this goes back to what you were saying, is that the right side of the line is a question mark. Now, Kobe Asamoah had a good game, solid game, and he didn't seem to be like an issue, but that right side is still a question mark with Needham at right tackle. You have a backup and a young guy in Dominic Rivera. You have Taj White, who's never played guard before, playing guard. Like, this is going to be Pat Flaherty has to earn his paycheck. He just got that contract extension a couple months ago. You got to earn your paycheck here. And they need to do something if they want to be successful for the rest of the season on offense.
Yeah, a lot of the same things for me. I thought, like you said, Mike, the tackling was much improved. And once again, we'll talk about it with Schiano's presser as well. That was something that he noticed as well. I thought the pass rush did a better job as the game went on. I mean, 4 sacks by 4 different guys. I think it was Daryl Jabome had 1. I believe Keontae Hamilton had 1. Trying to remember who the other 2. Jordan Thompson had 1, and then the last one, I think it was Aaron Lewis, also had 1.
Yep.
So yeah, the pass rush I thought looked improved as the game went on. Tackling was good. Yeah, the offensive line really struggled. It really felt like as the game went on, Nebraska just kept getting stronger and stronger. And you mentioned Tyler Needham. I don't remember the name of the edge for Nebraska that just he had some great bend around Needham, and it just felt like even if he wasn't putting pressure on the quarterback, it was kind of limiting where Ethan could go to the right side in particular, which, I mean, obviously is not going to help him because he is a righty and he's more comfortable throwing when he's moving to his right than his left, which we saw a few times. And again, the interior struggled too. I thought Monungai played a good game. Didn't see a lot from Sam Brown. I did like what I saw from Ben Black, despite the drop. I liked, that he was able to get separation really down the field, and that's something that we've been looking for this Rutgers team, getting separation down the field and being able to push the ball down the field. And the fact that, he dropped that huge pass that would have been a touchdown and then came back out on the next drive and scored a touchdown. I thought that showed a lot of resolve as a true freshman, getting some of your first big game action as well. So that was a positive, even with the tough play that he had. Didn't see a lot of Ian Strong. I thought Demir Miller and Chris Long were both okay. Mike, I know this is something that you've said a lot. I saw a lot of trying to get Chris Long the ball in some of these tight windows in tough coverage. I think he's best utilized similarly to how we saw Ben Black, just kind of stretching the field. I guess one guy, not to pull from someone that we know, but to make an NFL comparison, I thought it was kind of similar to like a Rashid Shaheed role in New Orleans, where if you try to throw to him in coverage and try to get him to separate off of a defensive back with the ball in the air, it's not going to work as well. But if you get him stretching the field and get him out in space, it's going to work really well. So we've kind of seen that from him as well. A lot of my takeaways kind of echoed what you guys said. And it was a very tough environment. In his presser, Schiano said at the start of the game, on-field temperature when you're factoring in the turf and all that was 121, which is, it's absolutely ridiculous. So a lot of things went wrong. Some things went right, but like Greg always says, you got to move on to the next season. And now Wisconsin's up.
So, real quick, going back to that line thing, the offensive line, I'm looking at it now. They have 38 pressures given up this year. 9 of which is in the lead is Tyler Needham. Who's in second place? Or I'm sorry, second place is Kobe Asamoah with 6. And in Tajway, all 5 were given up this past weekend. So I just don't understand how he said he had a good game. Like I like Tajway. I think he's a great guy, but he just struggled there. And I don't think he's a guard. I don't know if Needham's a tackle either. I think you might be able to reverse both of those, but besides the point. Yeah, and I did want to give I don't want to sound super negative because I'm always negative apparently. Bo Mascow, absolutely dominant performance. Like I thought he was great. I thought he was awesome. Like you said, the open field tackle. They didn't miss a beat with him. Now Salam, different question, different story. But you get Longerbeam back out there, Bo Mascow out there. That's a solid 3 cornerback rotation between those 2 and Rutgers. Like really good by the defense this past weekend.
I think it's in part Schiano just not wanting to discourage a young player.
Of course.
He's not going to be like, yeah, that total sack of shit we put in there, making his first start, played terrible. No, he's going to always hype his guys up. But we can be honest, he didn't have a great game compared to some of his teammates along the offensive line. A big kind of talking point before the game was what happens when Rutgers is forced to get away from the script it's followed basically for the first 4 games of the year, where you establish an early lead, you kind of sit on it all game, you just grind the clock away. And they were forced to do that this weekend. And some of these notes are the ones that I found to be most interesting. The first was they really kind of got away from play action coming into this game. They were averaging 39% play action rate on dropbacks. On Saturday, that dropped down to just 11% of play action on dropbacks. So Ethan Kaliak-Manis has one of the biggest deltas between play action completion percent and non-play action completion percent. He's completing over 70% of his passes on the season when there's play action involved, and only about 48% of his passes when it's just a straight drop back passing game. Those numbers were only more amplified. Yes, on Saturday, he completed all 5 of his pass attempts in the play action game, and he went 10 for 32 in straight drop back passing. Not great. Obviously, there's some drops in there, but not something you want to see. The first down run pass splits, widely different than what we were starting the season with. First 4 games of the season, we passed the ball on first down about 35% of the time, and we completed 63% of those passes for 352 yards. And we rushed the ball the other 65% of the time. We got 87 carries for 547 yards, so 6.3 yards per carry there. On Saturday, we passed the ball 54% of the time on first down, went 5 for 13, which is 38% with 57 yards. There's also a defensive holding, on first down that gave us a first down on one other play. We rushed the ball 46% of the time on first down, 12 times for 31 yards. Third downs were also much different than we had in the past. The first 4 games, we averaged the average down distance, the average yards to gain on third down for us was 5.3 yards. So that means on average, we were lining up at third and 5.3. On Saturday, our average distance on third down was third and 7.2. But if you just look at the first quarter of that game, we had 3 third downs. The average was 3.7 The rest of the game, it was 8.0 even. So what were we doing well in the first quarter? We were rushing the ball well in the first quarter. Rushing in the first quarter, we had 10 rushes for 70 yards. The rest of the game, we had 21 carries for 44 yards. When we were down by 14, we rushed the ball 13 times for 27 yards. So they just kind of figured out our rushing game, and it really just corrupted the rest of the offense. So they really need to figure out, what do we do when we're forced to play left-handed? Because on Saturday, we proved that we can't even write our names with our left hand on offense.
It's hard, man. You ever try to do that?
I have, and it looks like the scrawlings of a madman. So I know it's not easy, but that's what you have to do, because I think Nebraska is probably the best front seven we'll play all year, and it's probably the toughest environment we'll play in all year. Mm-hmm. So I think things can kind of only go up from here, but it's still not a great sign how we were just kind of put on blocks on offense. A few more notes. Ethan made way too many risky throws across his body, like Richie said. One was intercepted. The other one probably should have been as well. The split zone bluff, which is the Kenny Fletcher special, was shut down every time we tried to run it. Apparently, Illinois runs the same exact play, so Nebraska has seen it live and shut it down against them as well. Chris Long had 5 throws, 5 targets thrown to him in tight coverage. He caught one of them, and the other 4 were not even close. They just need to kind of remove that from the playbook, like Alex said. It's not going to work. It never has worked. It's gotten him hurt. If he's not in a situation where he's in space or he can actually stretch the defense, you just shouldn't target him in those situations. Those are the notes I had on offense. The offensive line, I had a few other things. False starts killed us. So, 3rd and 10s got stretched to 3rd and 15s. All 3 of the legitimate penalties were on the offense. They're all false starts, and I say legitimate because we had 4 penalties on the day. The 4th was the Dino Kaliak menace.
Targeting,
it was on
not
the kickoff.
targeting.
It was,
I think they called a late hit, and then they went to review if it was targeting, and I don't think it was.
Yeah, so they couldn't remove the late hit, but they could remove the targeting element of the late hit. He was pushed into a defenseless receiver or a defenseless returner on Nebraska. So it shouldn't have been a penalty to begin with, but once they call it, they can't remove that. Yep. Kyle Monungai had to basically make a lot out of nothing because the offensive line was not getting a push in the running game. He was met on most of his runs at or behind the line of scrimmage. The offensive line allowed way too many pressures. And if we're going to, not have a big improvement in terms of the pass blocking, we need to have more safety valves installed into pass plays where Ethan can get a ball out quick, because we had a few instances of that happening on Saturday, and we were able to get big chunk gains, like the one against the 1-2 Kyle Monungai on like 3rd and 17, where he got like 15 yards to set up a 4th and 2. So we just need kind of that built into our passing attack. Special teams, I feel like, was a mixed bag. The mix, mostly good because we blocked 2 punts. The bad, we allowed a fake punt for a 30-yard gain, which was double the amount of passing yards Dylan Raiola had in the second half. They revealed after the game that they noticed a tendency at halftime where our gunners did not cover their gunners, or I guess they wouldn't be gunners, whatever on offense they call those. Our gunners don't cover those guys past 10 yards down the field. So Bushini, the kicker or the punter, was literally talking in the presser saying, we practiced it at halftime in the locker room, like the throw we're going to do if we get that look. And sure enough, they have a wide open 30-yard pass. The fake field goal is probably the most controversial play of the game. After rewatching it and trying to break it down like the Zapruder film, I don't really know what they were intending to do there. It kind of looked like the way Nebraska lines up for field goal blocks. There was a natural lane that opens up and towards the right side between the long snapper and the guard. Yeah, if you can,
right here,
if you can, I don't know if you could zoom in, but there's just no defender there.
Right here, you're talking about, right?
Yes. So the only defender there is that linebacker, and you notice that like there is a lane there, but it looks like they're double teaming one defender on the right side. They're allowing that gunner to kind of over pursue, and they left him unblocked. I don't know what they were supposed to do. I think it's also very suspicious when you have a guy who's not the holder come in for a hold. I think that immediately should send spidey senses up any good coach's spine, saying this is weird. Checks, I don't know. Two other things I had on special teams. I was fine with the long field goal attempt, but Jay Patel really is just put in like the worst situations every week, because if it's he's not given attempts at easy field goals. It's only like long field goals in tough environments, and then what do you expect in a wind tunnel is going to happen on a 52-yarder? I was fine with the decision to kick it because the wind was blowing at their backs, and he almost made it. Off the upright for 52 yards for a college kicker. I'll take that. It is what it is, but they got to just let him get some layups every once in a while. I also, for how much of a stickler Greg is about, special teams and getting, not giving up field position, they let these punts just roll down the field. They did it twice in the game. The first time they allowed it to roll, it bounced at the 45 and rolled down to the 23. So they lost 22 yards of field position there. The second time, which was I believe the final drive, the final offensive drive for the offense, the punt, they didn't try for a punt block. It bounced at the 25 and rolled to the 11. So it's just like, you have a fifth-year returner back there in Christian Dremel. You have him back there primarily because he's the guy you trust most in terms, his hands. Why do you not trust him to just like scoop up a ground ball and like knee it? Like, you don't have, I get not wanting to return it, but just allow it to like roll 20 yards down the field. That's 2 first downs. Greg talked earlier in the year about these like flyover yards when you can complete these long passes, like to Chris Long after we scored that touchdown. And he's like, you're flying over all these issues. You're flying over the holding. You're flying over the interception you could possibly have, the blah, blah, blah. All these problems you're flying over, but you're allowing those problems to tumble down the field when you don't allow your returner to scoop up a ground ball. So that, I don't know, that's it, really truly everything I have. Sorry I've monopolized the pod here for a bit, but I just had to get it all out.
You said special teams, and this one I think drives me the most nuts, and just because I have it in the background. Like, I get it. Like, Christian Dremel's already on the Nebraska side of the field, so this punt is more likely in plus territory. Send the house. You blocked this guy twice already. Like, send the house when they're that far back. I'm shocked that they sent these two guys back to go block for Dremel after Dremel hasn't returned a single thing like all season long. I think you're muted, Mike.
I said he did return this to like the 30-yard line.
I would have sent the house to him, to be honest. Like, you've already blocked this guy a couple times. He's not like fully healthy, I guess, if you want to call it that. Like, yeah, look at him. He's wincing in pain. Like,
also, one thing that I want to touch on, I don't know what the heck they gave this guy in between like the third and fourth quarters, because like you said, he was like holding his back and kind of like gingerly walking off the field all game. And then on the fake punt, he throws an absolute dot. I don't know what the heck they gave him, but whatever it was, it worked. And,
smelling salt.
Yeah. To echo what Mike said, I was going to say the same thing. I kind of just feel bad for Jay Patel because of the situations he's put in. It's not completely Greg Schiano's fault that he can't get any layups. That's just kind of how it is. But man, he's got to see something go in this weekend from like 35.
Yeah.
Yep, I totally agree. He did nail the Virginia Tech kick late, to give him credit, but he's not put in very easy positions on this team right now.
And shout out to Nebraska DB Sierra Wright also. 11 targets on the day, 9 targets on the day, 1 reception for 11 yards, 2 PBUs, 1 interception. Like, damn good game for that guy.
Yeah, Nebraska was very disruptive up front, and they played pretty good coverage as well. They were a tough team. I don't think we underestimated them, but I think clearly we had more than enough opportunities to win this game. The defense kept us in it all day. Credit to the team. They didn't give up, especially on defense. It's so tough to keep that high intensity through, we've seen some really anemic Rutgers offenses, and we've seen defenses wane. They did not wilt at all, especially in that heat that Schiano talked about in his presser. That he was told at one point that it was 120 on the field. We'll get into that. I guess that's a good transition. You guys have anything else on the game that you wanted to hit on before we talk about Schiano's presser?
I got nothing.
All right. So Greg Schiano met with the media today. He went surprisingly long. Alec was there. He went 18 minutes. He did a little bit of philosophizing. What were some of the things that were said at the presser today that stood out to you, Alec?
I don't want to say it was like a weird mood, but he was definitely, like you said, a lot more talkative today. He kind of drew out a lot of his answers. It was also kind of funny. The video is already up, so you can find it there. When Pat Laney asked about, what are we going to see any under center runs, or it's mostly shotgun. Will we continue to see that? He went on about how you're kind of giving the ball off at the same point when you're in the shotgun versus when you're under center and you have to do a step, a 3-step drop to hand it off. So that was a little interesting. He said a lot about how he was proud of his team, like you said, Mike, for fighting through 60 minutes, especially in the conditions, some of the tough things that we saw at the game. He just said a lot about how he was proud of the team and how they performed. I asked him about the pass rush, and like we were talking about, got 4 sacks from 4 different players. He noted he saw a lot of defensive improvement on tackling and on the pass rush as well, not just on sacks, which were very good, getting 4 of them, but also just getting pressure and getting some of those errant throws that we saw as the game went on in the second half. So he was surprisingly upbeat about the game. I'm sure afterwards he was fuming at least a little bit. But today he was surprisingly upbeat, and he kept saying, they're on to Wisconsin. It's a very good team. It's he said one of his signature things, you can't let the same team beat you twice. And he said, if we lose on Saturday, I can bet 100% it's not because of this game. It's because Wisconsin was better than us that day. So, I mean, like I said, surprisingly upbeat Schiano today. Talked a lot about how he saw improvements on defense. He said another interesting note that he said was usually you allow for two missed tackles per level of the defense, so D-line, linebacker, secondary. He said they only had 2 or 3 total missed tackles throughout the game. So he said if you're getting about 6 missed tackles, you're in a pretty good spot. So only having 2 or 3 for the entire defense was pretty impressive. So just got to keep moving forward. And Wisconsin, they're down Ches Malusi and Tyler Van Dyke, but it's gonna be a tough game.
Yeah, Wisconsin won't be a walkover by any means. It's unfortunate that they had a get-right game this weekend against Purdue, which might be the worst Power 4 team in the country, I should say. They won 52-6. I can't say that their quarterback really impresses me. I can't say they really have like a standout unit on their team. I need to do a bit of a deeper dive on Wisconsin, but they have some good players. They have an experienced safety in Wohler, who I was surprised came back. They have that corner who Pixic is back from last year. So they have a pretty good secondary. But like you said, they've lost some key contributors this year in their quarterback, their running back one. Rutgers needs to get this Wisconsin monkey off of the rack, though. They've never beat them. So this is another first that Rutgers is attempting on Saturday. So we're going to have a full preview of Wisconsin this week at some point, probably with our guys at Believe in Badgers. But it's going to be a tough game. Rutgers opened as a 2.5-point favorite. I don't think that's really moved since it opened. But is there anything else that Schiano said that stood out to you guys?
He did say I had a good question when asking about the pass rush. So true. Point for me today.
That's not the first time you've gotten the old pat on the back with a good question from Schiano.
But did he say your name? Because usually he'll just call you by numbers if he doesn't like you. Right, Mike?
That's true. I don't have a number though. I don't know if he actually knows my name, but
I'm sure he does.
Baby steps.
He did say Mo Toure is coming back next year, and he basically said Felter's coming back. I know we reported it the other day, but that's huge. That's really it. I mean, Taj White's the starter at left guard. Like, they're not going to rotate in Chin, it seems. Well, I guess they could rotate him in if it goes bad, but right now Taj is the starter as long as healthy, was the exact quote.
Okay, so let's talk about some of Rutgers' future opponents. Richie puts out the updated ESPN FBI projections each week when they come out. I believe Rutgers is still projected to win 8 wins. According to the FBI, Rutgers is given a 60.6% chance of beating Wisconsin this upcoming weekend. We already talked about the game that they had this past weekend. Braden Locke is their quarterback now. He hasn't had a particularly great start to the year. Obviously, he comes in at halftime basically against Alabama and goes 13 for 26 for 1 touchdown, no interceptions, got sacked twice. Shockingly similar stat line the following week at USC, 13 for 26 again, 180 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Had his best game of the season so far against Purdue, who is really struggling. He went 20 for 31, 359 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, no sacks. So he's a different quarterback, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's a great quarterback either. Rutgers' homecoming opponent is UCLA.
Real quick before you go past Wisconsin, there is some familiarity between this Rutgers and Wisconsin, especially in the Wisconsin coaching staff. Luke Fickell, Greg Schiano coached together at Ohio State.
Yep.
Phil Longo, Jersey guy, offensive coordinator. Offensive line coach, AJ Blazik. Can't forget him. And graduate assistant on offense, Zach Heeman, who you might remember.
Yeah, he was a former Rutgers offensive lineman.
Yeah, a lot of Rutgers connections on this staff. I'm all shocked. And Blazik's made his way back to the Big Ten, man. I always liked him. I thought he was an underrated coach.
Yeah, interesting connections there.
Right.
We'll have more on that later this week. But
yeah, back to the good stuff.
UCLA dropped to 1-4 on the season, 0-3 in the conference. They lost in Happy Valley. They did cover. I think this one was a 28-point spread. They lost 27-11. They were without their starting quarterback, Ethan Garbers. Justin Martin filled in pretty admirably for them. He went 22 for 30, 167 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. The run game for UCLA never really got going. They rushed for a combined 93 yards on 29 attempts. Not a whole lot of standouts on the UCLA team. They've been pretty decimated by injuries. But Penn State didn't really have its best offensive output on the day either. I know they were without Nicholas Singleton, but, I mean, Katron Allen, 3.7 yards per carry. Rich, you had to watch that game, I think, as part of your blood oath contribution or whatever, however you've reasoned behind covering Penn State internally. What is the general vibes about how UCLA played against Penn State this past weekend?
The game's really not as close as the score is. Like, it's 27-11, but they scored on like a last second garbage time touchdown versus like 2s and 3s. So it was more like
16 seconds left in the game. They scored a touchdown and got a 2-point conversion.
That didn't really mean much. Their run game sucks, but I think Justin Martin should be their starting quarterback. I think it's a similar situation to Virginia Tech last year with who was it? Drones, and I don't even remember who the other guy was. Grant Wells. Yeah. Wow, yeah, I forgot about that. I thought Justin Martin actually looked pretty damn good for UCLA, considering they have no weapons. Their top runner has 150 yards on the season. That's like a Kyle Monangai single game. Like, it's a bad UCLA team. They're not very good. And for them to go, they showed the graphic of how much they've traveled this year and how much they're going to travel still ahead. Went to Hawaii, came back home for Indiana, went to LSU, came back home for Oregon, went to Penn State, comes back home for Minnesota, goes to Rutgers, goes to Nebraska. And it's like, what the who put that together for them?
They definitely did not get any favors year one. Similar to Rutgers, did not get any favors for about a decade.
That's how it works. Someone's got to be the whipping boy.
Rutgers given a 79.5% chance of winning that game, so you got to figure Rutgers, based on that, will at least be a touchdown favorite. The two opponents Rutgers will face after UCLA play each other this weekend. USC, we play on the 27th of October on the road, and Minnesota, we play on November 2nd after a bye. They played in Minneapolis. Minnesota won on a late controversial call where, similar to Rutgers, it looked like the guy broke the plane. They didn't call it. PJ Fleck blew a gasket, got a review, and it was overturned.
You could do that?
USC, Yeah, it turns out you can. USC has not really looked that great. Michigan kind of caught them, exposed them a bit. Wisconsin was beating them 21-10, I believe, at half before they scored 28 unanswered in the second half. And then Minnesota kind of dictated the terms of the game on Saturday, even though they did come back. They were losing 17-10 going into the fourth quarter. But USC, as Shania Twain said, that don't impress me much. They're not that great of a team. They're not nearly as great as a team as I thought they were going to be. Anybody have a strong take on USC, how they've looked this year?
They can't stop the run. I mean,
yeah, it's that they just struggle with some of these physical teams at the point of attack. Like Michigan and Minnesota are two big examples of that. Rutgers is another example of that. I'm not saying that Rutgers is going to win that game, but they have a better shot than maybe people think, just because of the way that pretty much all Lincoln Riley teams have struggled with that aggressive physicality, schemes that they go against. Even back when he was at Oklahoma, they sometimes struggled with that. I think Miller Moss can be a problem. I think he's probably one of the better quarterbacks that Rutgers will face this year. But their defense is much improved from last year. Granted, it's hard to get much worse. They finally got Lincoln Riley finally cut bait with Alex Grinch, and Deonton Lynn was a heck of a hire from UCLA. I think he's done a pretty good job this year. So that game's gonna be tough, but I think it could go different than people think. I don't think it's gonna be like a high flying offensive game. I think it could be more low scoring.
Yeah, no. I mean, you look at what Michigan did. They held them to 24 points. You look at what Minnesota did. I believe they also held them to 24 points. No, 17 points. I'm sorry. So if you could just kind of frustrate them a bit and force them into, having to play a game down in the trenches rather than through the air, I think that's probably how we win. Darius Taylor had a really good game, who's their stud running back in Minnesota. 25 carries, 144 yards. It's 5.8 per carry. Max Brosmer scored all 3 touchdowns, and all 3 of them were on the ground for the Gophers. 15 for 19 on the day for 169 yards passing. Kind of like, looks a lot like the stat lines that we'd want to see from Nathan, where it's just like you don't necessarily need to throw bombs. You just need to complete the easy stuff. Darius Taylor also led the team in receiving yards as the running back, 5 catches for 56 yards. Interesting thing to monitor there. On the other side of that game, Minnesota is 3-3 now, 1-2 in conference. They get their first win in the Big Ten this year. They've lost games to North Carolina at home, to Iowa at home, and then on the road in a controversial finish against Michigan. Anybody got a strong take on Minnesota this year?
Great run game. Yeah, I mean they're okay. They're nothing crazy. I don't feel like.
I mean, I've been saying, after Saturday, I don't think it's going to happen anymore. But I've been thinking that this might be it for Fleck at Minnesota. But after this, I mean, getting that win, I think kind of saves him for another year. I don't know if he was going to get fired. I think maybe he might have taken like a parachute job elsewhere.
Sort of like Dana Holgerson style.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But after that, after this win, I think he's bought himself some more time.
I love that Minnesota plays 3 straight opponents that Rutgers will have to play, also leading up to the Rutgers game. So they play UCLA the week before we do. Then they play Maryland and Illinois before they play Rutgers that following week. So I just love when you can watch 2 opponents in the future in the same game. It just makes things a lot more efficient. That's kind of all I got for that game. No, go ahead.
I say Ja Joyner, who ironically was this close to committing to Rutgers when Schiano first took over, is phenomenal. I think he's a really good edge rusher. I think Rutgers might have some issues with him. Is he the one that did the gun celebration holster thing?
No, that was Wally.
Okay, never mind. Take it back. Well, yes, you're right. That was him. But no, anyway, Ja Joyner is really, really talented. I think if they line him up against Needham, it's going to be an issue. So you got a couple weeks to prepare. But I think Rutgers should be able to take care of business a little bit there.
Should, yeah. I think they'll be favored in that one as well. I think they're given a 67% chance of winning that one in the RPI. 62% chance.
Has Rutgers beaten Michigan since Rutgers joined the Big Ten?
They
Michigan?
Or Minnesota, I mean.
I don't think they've beaten Minnesota since they joined the Big Ten.
That's another one that's another monkey to get off.
Yeah.
0-3.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of monkeys to get off the back this season. They had a chance to do it at Nebraska. They did not succeed, but there's plenty more opportunities for landmarks and flag plants this season. I'm still bummed about the Nebraska game. I'm hoping that at some point we'll get all the units of the team to play a good game together, because for a while it's been we can't get the defense going. Now we got the defense going and the offense stalled out. So it's got to happen at some point, right? Like the whole team has to kind of gel at some point. Well, that's what I hope. Anyway. All right.
Yeah.
What else, guys? Anything you guys wanted to touch on before we head out of here?
Rutgers basketball schedule has been released, but the times will be released for tip-off this Wednesday afternoon. Stay tuned for that. Basketball's around the corner, so that game's actually, 10 days away now from that exhibition game? I don't think they released tickets yet still.
I think they
did they? Maybe they did. They have. I take it back, yeah.
Because I was listening to Danny Breslauer's Twitter space last night. He said the lower bowl sold out, but there's general admission tickets in the 200 and 300s that are $10, I believe.
This might be your only chance to see them.
This is going to be your only chance for a real game-like environment at the rack for a relatively inexpensive price point. It's going to be like a real game environment there. I highly recommend going because even though the game won't count, I think it's going to very much feel like a true Rutgers home game, and they're going to treat it with the pomp and circumstance of the game. They're going to have introductions. It's going to be on TV. It's going to have all the same.
Has that been officially
beats.
announced yet?
Yeah, it's on well, it's going to be on TV.
Yeah. I thought it's either BTN or BTN Plus. It depends what BTN wants to do, I was told. But unless you have some insider information.
I might. It's going to be on TV.
Mike, what do you know that we don't? Mike just knows everything.
I got something switching topics completely. Braxton Kyle was at Georgia this weekend, but after checking him sources, he will be at Rutgers this weekend. So will Michael Clayton, who also got a South Carolina offer and was at South Carolina 3 weeks ago. Nothing to worry about, I was told, with either of them. Take it for what it's worth, but that's what I was told. That's a good sign because Braxton Kyle more than likely will be a 4-star in the next update, which is next month. So
wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
Also, I found the tickets for St. John's. So just to bring it up, the 100s are all sold out, but again, the 200s and 300s, it's general admission. So I guess it's just sit wherever. I guess.
Yep.
Highly recommend checking those out. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, also one more thing on the women's basketball side. So got reports that Jayla Lampley, who I believe she's a consensus 4-star out of the state of Indiana, has narrowed down her top 3. I believe it's Rutgers, Louisville, and Mississippi State. I believe. I guess apparently she will be committing soon. I think by the end of the month. So if we find out anything ahead of time, definitely check the boards for that. I believe Media Day is October 22nd. I'll be there, of course, to get some good Media Day stuff. So be on the lookout for that too over the next few weeks. Yeah, it's weird. Basketball season's almost here. Less than a month until the season opener.
Yeah, officially less than a month now that it's turned into the 7th. Crazy.
Awesome.
Time flies. All right. Well, thanks once again for listening. Hopefully we can have a little bit more of an upbeat Monday pod next week. But if not, we'll still be here. We are like your steady Eddie in terms of this analysis and podcasting. Sorry, I'm still like totally foggy in the brain from this latest round of COVID. But almost back. Anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. Once again, we are going to have a really cool giveaway that we've kind of teased. We'll talk about that more later in the week.
Could tease it a little more?
We can tease it more.
Ooh.
That says
kind of
McKeecher.
guess what that means. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to be doing a giveaway similar to the ones we've done in the past, where you can enter with 2 entries for an Apple review, or if you comment something that we haven't determined yet into the comments of the video, you
Final
can get
four
entries
bound.
to this. I don't want to put that on them. What do
I'm
we
just
want to
kidding.
make it? Let's workshop this here. We'll do this live. Final Four bound, I feel like it's too much.
Yeah, that's a risk right there. Well, what place did they get projected in the Big Ten standings? Like 6? Is that what it was?
7th, I think, by the media.
7th place. Be 7th place. It's kind of funny.
How about Dayton bound?
Dayton
Stop.
bound.
Stop. Let's see. Our hoops is simple. It's easy, but dynamic duo. Future NBA, future Brooklyn Net. And you could put either name technically. I don't know.
We'll think about it. We'll have something
Yeah,
for next
I'm
pod.
struggling.
But we'll start doing that giveaway next week or next pod.
Yep.
But, is
Sounds
it
good.
just the McEachern jersey? Just the
Ooh,
ace? Or do we
the
have
other
another
one should be here Wednesday, but it's not here. But you can kind of guess what that other one is.
Yeah. So we're going to be giving
Sharif
away
Cooper.
Sharif Cooper.
It's exactly who it is. How'd you know?
We're going to be giving away an official, quote-unquote, Ace Bailey high school jersey and a quote-unquote official Dylan Harper jersey from high school.
How'd you know that?
I know everything.
It's fair.
Keep up. All right. Thanks once again to everybody for listening, rating, reviewing, telling a friend. It's really helped grow the channel and the podcast, so we can't thank you enough. But for me, Richie and Alec, this has been another edition of the Knight Report podcast. Signing off.